Hello, nerds. Welcome to GeekBeast, part of the Geekish Network. This is your daily rundown of geek news from geeks like you. I am your host, Summer Punch, and with me, we have got Chuck.
What's up, everyone?
And Santel.
Yo, what's cracking, late, baby? I'm still fired up from the season finale of Bel Air, and all these amazing shows have been popping up left and right. It's just content overload. But I took a pause so I can sit here and hang out with my people because I love having these stimulating conversations with y'all.
That's the truth.
What's up, girl? How you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm good. I love that you said that because we're in the, I feel like everybody knows it. It's almost cliche to say at this point, but are we not in the golden age of television? You know, there's so much good shit to watch right now. I just found a new show called, it's on Apple TV. Called Severance.
Everybody keeps telling me about it. Don't you dare spoil it.
I won't tell you anything about it, but
it's my next step, but I hear it's good. I hear it's good.
So good. It's so good. Interesting concept too. Very interesting concept.
You know what the beauty of everything is? Since there's no commercial breaks, production companies and platform holders have to produce an abundance of content to try to get everybody. Now they can't force us to eat something at a certain time slot. We can eat whatever we want anytime we want. So they got to have all the food prepared all the time. It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And I'm like,
okay, yeah, and I'm good, by the way. So thank you. Thanks for letting me join on a Thursday. I went on a little work trip for earlier this week, and I'm back home in my own bed. Oh, just love it. It's good to be back with you guys too.
Thank you for coming
back with you guys.
We need you back here.
You don't have to thank me. I'm always right. All right, so let's get into the news for today. Let's start it off with some video game news. So E3 2022 for this year has been completely canceled. So this year's E3, the Electronic Arts Expo and the biggest game of the video, or the biggest event of the video game industry, has been canceled entirely. And the organization at E3 or Entertainment Software Association confirmed on Thursday today that is being canceled for the whole entire year. So news of E3 2022's cancellation broke through partners and publishers who said that they were informed via email, very lackluster information right there, by the ESA that this year's digital event has been completely scrapped and that there isn't going to be an in-person event either. So E3 came out in 2023, so next year with a reinvigorated showcase that celebrates new and exciting video games and industry innovations, but womp, 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 it's not happening this year, which is, a little bit of a surprise because I'm pretty sure they said the same exact thing last year. Makes sense, but also nobody wants to see a fucking digital event. It was boring. I don't even know if I tuned in last year. The highlights were lame. It's not as big of a moment in the video game industry for publishers and industry and also fans alike. So do you feel like this is the end of E3? Are they ever going to come back? They've been waning in popularity and power and influence for the past several years. And the fact that they canceled this one completely outright in person, both digitally and in person, is not really, it's not really good news. It's not really a good omen.
It's not a good look.
Well,
I mean, it makes sense in this day and age where we're in a 24-hour news stream, and you got Twitter and Facebook and even TikTok and Instagram shows can show clips of video games and the new things that is coming out. There's no need to have physical butts in the seats anymore. That was the core of these big things, is that you had to physically be there to talk to these people, to physically be there to see something that's not going to be replayed unless it's on a commercial weeks or even months later on down the road. Since that's no longer the draw anymore, then you ask the question, why go?
Yeah.
That is a good question.
Yeah.
Like, why?
You guys ever been to E3, Chuck? I'm sure you have.
I go every year. Yeah, I'm religious in going. I love that place, but it's changed over the years.
Did you go last year or attended digitally?
I attended digitally last year.
What did you think?
I thought it was a waste of my time. It was like a bunch of horrible pressers that they felt like halfway done. Like they were kind of lackluster. It was kind of a lackluster event. But
yeah, to say the least.
It's nothing like.
How about you, Summer? Were you attended? Oh, I'm a bad.
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say. All I was gonna say is.
I mean,
go ahead, Summer.
Go for it.
I was gonna say. I used to go to E3 to see my friends. My friends I don't get to see during dev cycles. That's it.
Yeah, I do miss that aspect of it. I used to be so excited, especially earlier on in my career in the video game industry. I was just like so stoked to go, seeing all the big events, seeing all the other people in the industry. It was always like a really big deal. And, the companies that I had worked for had always spent tons of money to establish a huge presence. It's just not a thing anymore. As the years went on, the teams that I were on, we'd always calculate, is it worth it? Is it worth the money? Because it is expensive having a presence at E3. And, year over year, there was just less interest, less impact with the community. Eventually they started opening it up to players and fans, which attended. And then that kind of changed the dynamic. It obviously made it less industry oriented and more of a consumer facing event, which just made it a little bit more less serious as far as industry players go, which is fine. It's a huge event and people did want to attend. And I think it was the right decision to open it up to the public and the general audience and non-industry people. However, I think it was kind of done in an attempt to make it more relevant and exciting for people to continue to tune in, but I don't really know if it worked that well. And then of course, the timing of the pandemic really hurt it because it was canceled and then it was digital. And then this year we could actually have it in person because, I think you just show up with a mask and it's fine. And at least in California where it's always being held, you don't technically have to wear a mask inside. So the opportunity is now back, but maybe it's being canceled because of the planning and because of the changes. I don't know. It's admittedly difficult to plan anything in person right now. So it's probably what contributed most heavily towards its cancellation. That's just speculation on my part. I don't know for sure. However, it's not really helping the relevance of E3 in general anymore. PAX is just as important as it was before. And Gamescom is the Tokyo Game Show is also rising in relevance and popularity. So it's more of a competition out there in the market for just the biggest show out there. Oh, also the Game Awards hosted by Jeff Keighley. That's now a huge spot for game announcements. And yeah, E3 is just kind of waning out. So I hope it comes back. I hope it becomes just as influential and powerful and as big of a moment as before. But the thing is, with everything just becoming more digital, the publishers can create their own moments now. So for example, Nintendo has their, what is the name of it? Their Nintendo
Direct.
Stream. Yeah, Nintendo Direct. And that's where they just own their own announcements and big, news events. And same thing with PlayStation. They also have their own streamed, not necessarily live event too. And so they're creating their own opportunity press moments. which is just kind of pushing E3 out of relevance. But I think it's still a good opportunity for all of the players to come together. There are publishers that are not as big as Nintendo and PlayStation, of course, which still need those big industry moments to kind of piggyback off of. So as a video game industry insider myself, I would love to see it come back with a little bit more gusto, but it's kind of too bad to see it waning. But also, like, step up your fucking game, make it fun, make it relevant, give us a reason to tune in. Last year, there wasn't really much of one.
Okay.
Well, cheers to you, E3. I hope you come back. We got some Defunk in the chat, always coming in with the hot opinions. So he said E3 died before COVID. True, agree. And you guys were really lucky to go to student project. Oh, that's so cute. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Student project. That's how I felt the first time I went. I was like, I'm young and enthusiastic, and I can't wait to be here. And everybody older than me that I worked with, they're like, oh, you sweet little child, you're not jaded yet.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm never gonna be jaded, and now I'm just like, it's not as exciting as it used to be. God damn it, I'm jaded.
Yeah, me and the Funk put in the chat. We were able to showcase our student project E3 a long time ago. Back when E3 was fun.
That's so cute.
Back when they had booth babes and pyrotechnics in the E3 floor.
Are we harkening back to the booth babe days? Because those were some troublesome days. Like that was not a good look for the video game industry, who already has a reputation for just being a bunch of like dev white guys that are completely out of touch with the rest of non-white America. And then the boot face thing, super sexist overtones. Like, come on, I don't know if we need to go back there. But you know what? I will admit, I bet that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. It was going to the club because there was liquor and beer and food everywhere. Free T-shirts everywhere. Free bags, promo codes. You had Tony Hawk and all the X game in there with a half pipe, skating on a half pipe that had pyrotechnics on it. They went all out in E3 back in the day. They blew the bag. They spent the bag. It was like being in the champagne room. It was like I
hear stories about it, and you hear stories. Like if you talk to like some really old heads, like probably like your great grandfather's age cats that are like in their 70s and 80s, and you hear them like tell stories of like about what Vegas was when the mob ran it, when the mob was owned Vegas and before it became corporate. And just the legendary tales of just full blown just debauchery as far as the eye can see. And they're like, it'll never be that again. Yes, I mean, now everything is owned by corporations, and it's Vegas sanitized. And you're not really in danger.
Isn't Vegas still pretty like influenced by their own Vegas mob?
Nah, it's not. They do have their own Vegas mob, but it's a lot of corporations there.
It's not like when the Rat Pack was out there running around and doing it. And
okay.
So that's why when I hear like the old school E3 stories when it comes to like the pyrotechs and the booth bakes, I hear like the old heads talking about Vegas back in the day. The only reason why I heard those stories, because I lived in LA at the time and I worked with a bunch of really old dudes in film. And when they used to do shoots in Vegas and stuff, they always had like these crazy legendary stories about Vegas before corporations showed up. So that's how I feel about y'all in E3.
They said
I can't wait till one day I'm an old head in the video game industry and I'm like, back in my day, we had booths that actually were there and
booths that were actually
digital
there.
And this thing. I have it like I don't know. I don't even know how to talk like a broke person. I'll figure it out as I age. All right, moving on to some other news. The Razzies has reversed course and rescinds Bruce Willis category following the aphasia diagnosis. Oh, okay, that's not good. So I know we covered this story a few weeks ago when I think I was on the show even. So the Golden Raspberry Awards, or the Razzies, reversed its stance on Bruce Willis themed category, which honored the man. The Razzies, by the way, it's not an award you want to win, but there was a whole damn category dedicated to Bruce Willis himself and his amazingly terrible movies that he's been in. But they reversed the themed category following the actor's aphasia diagnosis being made public. So The Razzies came out with a statement saying, after much thought and consideration, the Razzies have made the decision to rescind the Razzies award given to Bruce Willis due to his recently disclosed diagnosis. Yeah. The co-founders go on to say that if someone's medical condition is a factor in their decision-making and their performance, we acknowledge that, and it is not appropriate to give them a Razzie. So in February, the nominees for the 42nd Razzie Awards were unveiled, with Bruce Willis getting his very own category, the worst performance by Bruce Willis in its 2021 movie, which is hilarious. But that sounds like a very decent move on their part.
Yeah, well, the Razzies has a history of being like real tongue-in-cheeky. It's supposed to be like poking fun at itself, the industry poking fun at itself, right? If it's not really meant to be 100% malicious, even though sometimes, a couple of times, people get upset when they get a Razzie. I mean, a perfect example is when Halle Berry won the Oscar and a Razzie in the same year. So after she picked up her Oscars, she went down to where the Razzies was being held, and then picked up her Worst Actress of All Time award at the same time. It's real tongue in cheek. And Bruce Willis has been battling something for a while now that it's just now becoming disclosed. And there's something to be said when people start working a lot harder. It seems like maybe they're trying to build up enough funds to save for a rainy day. And in hindsight, it's looking like that's what Bruce Willis may have been doing. I think he did like 20 something movies in like 4 years. So, which is insane. The only person that maybe work harder than him is maybe Samuel L. Jackson. Yes. It's like insane. And while people were just thinking he's just doing it because he loves the art, and that's probably a big reason of it is too, but I'm sure he was like building a nest egg as well, because I heard you couldn't even book him for no less than like $2 million. So 20 movies at bare minimum $2 million per pop, you can do the math. Unfortunately, he's got a disorder that's affecting his ability to act, remember lines, hit marks, respond correctly. So he finally tapped out. And then I'm happy that the Razzies was like, okay, we're doing this to laugh at our own people, because you're doing like 20 movies in 4 years, you're your own category. But then when you hear the reason why, it's like, our bad. We didn't know the full story. So I actually respect him more for doing that.
Yeah, no, that's a very decent move. And for those who don't know what aphasia is, so on March 30th, the Willis family announced that he'd be stepping away from acting entirely due to a diagnosis of aphasia, which causes loss or impairment of the power to use or comprehend words. So this was a really challenging time for the family. And they go on to say, we are so appreciative of your continued love, compassion, and support. So that's very decent of the Razzies to step away from it. Tongue in cheek is meant in jest and good fun. But now that they know that, it was, due to something a little bit more serious and they're stepping away from it, it's a very nice move. Considering that I think we can all agree that you should not make fun of people for things they can't help, like a diagnosis. Just gonna throw that out there and wait for you guys to take the bait.
Wow. Hey, I know exactly what you're saying.
I think that is a perfect transition into a question I have for you guys. I'm sorry I wasn't on the show right after Will Smith slapped the shit out of Chris Rock. I know you guys probably already talked about it, but I'm just curious. You need to satiate my curiosity. I need to talk to you guys about this on air. Okay. Chris Rock then followed the infamous slap with a Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me. And it turns out Will Smith did it because Chris Rock made fun of his wife, who has a shaved head because of her medical condition. Apparently it's not the last. I don't know. Please engage me in this topic. I'm too curious not to talk about it on air. What do you think? Just give me the high notes.
You want to go first, Cynthia? You can go first.
No, I'll make mine short and sweet, and then we'll continue.
Do your thing.
On
do
it.
your thing.
And my short and sweet is this. Yes, Chris Rock has the right to say whatever it is he wants to say. You have that right. But just because you have the right to say what you want to say does not give you the right to receive consequences for saying what you say. He received a consequence.
He certainly did. He certainly did.
He received the consequence.
Yes, he did.
So now I'll leave the mic alone for a little bit. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay.
Back up later.
Because something you can do is wrong doesn't mean it's not justified. I've seen a lot of wrong actions happen to some people, but every time I saw it, it's like, yeah, I see why that happened. I see why that happened. And we're from a community of people where somebody says, you keep running your mouth, I'm gonna pop everything out of it. I'm gonna smack the taste out of your mouth. And I've seen people keep going, and then when it happens, we all like, well, you were told I was gonna knock the taste out your mouth. We live in an honor system in America. And I have a friend who once worked for one of the respective companies of these two camps. And she said there's been beef for years, ever since one of the camps products getting picked up by another one of the camps products. I mean, as a production, and there's been beef for years. And a comedian did tell jokes
between the two of them.
Ago.
See, I didn't know that before today.
Mm-hmm.
So do you just like just
baseball,
Chris?
Though.
Apparently, he's made a lot of jokes about her over some time. And but did Chris Rock know that Will Smith and his family were offended by those jokes, like along the way?
Probably,
or was this a surprise to Chris Rock? That's what, because I feel like that's a critical piece of information.
Well, you don't know I'm offended till I tell you. I'll let you know that I'm offended, and I think Will let him know on last Sunday that he was offended. And you know, people talk about Jada and Will's relationship, and I said whatever rules they placed on their relationship and whatever category they placed their relationship in doesn't give you the right to talk about another man's wife. I don't care what you say. And if that man is offended, he's allowed to react the way he feels like he needs to react. And he laughed at first until he looked at his wife and he saw the hurt and anger in her face. And he's like, well, let me fix this. You know, this was
which just shows like this man is an actor. Like he can put on his game face, right?
Yeah.
And then the second he sees something,
people have to understand she's suffering from this disease. She hasn't been seen in public in a while. She showed up at the Oscars for her husband because he was up for Best Actor. She showed up for him. She's sick and showed up for him. And then the host cracks a joke on her. She's like, motherfucker, I'm here because of you. I didn't even want to be here tonight.
Did Chris Rock know that it's because of a medical condition? Was it alopecia?
No.
Don't matter.
Don't matter.
Don't even matter.
Don't even matter. Don't even matter.
You know, sometimes you catch bad ones for just saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. To the wrong person. Such is life. Such is life. That's just, you know, I mean, people forget that life in general is a contact sport. Life is a contact sport. And you're not going to get through it without, you know, some scrapes and bruises sometimes, or somebody saying something to you. We just got caught. You just bear witness to a life moment.
It was the wrong place, wrong time.
I think that's a good way to say it, actually, because people are making all these moralistic statements about Will Smith shouldn't have done this, blah, 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 blah. Or like, you know, he was like people are just, I feel like they're almost thinking too high-minded about it. Yeah. And when I saw it, I was like, ooh, that's a little cringy, because like, I just don't feel like, I don't think it's a good look to get that emotional in public. You know, he looked like, and then he was crying afterwards. And it's like, you know, it's embarrassing. You know, like, I don't think that was a good look for Will Smith, obviously, because he just, you know,
lost it.
He committed violence on, you know, like some television. He got all mad, and, you know, like, it just wasn't a good look. But also at the same time, like, I feel like it would be too much for me to say, like, oh, he should not have done this. You know, it was just a fucking life moment. And I agree with you, Zintel. Yeah, it's just like, that was a human being a human. Yes, you know, we can make all these moralistic judgments about what he should have done, but like, honestly, like, we've all had those moments, and this was just caught on tape in front of.
It just happened to be on tape.
Let's address the real elephant in the room. Racism. A bunch of white people decide to pass judgment on something that white men have done. Tommy Lee did the same thing with Chris Rock at the MTV Awards. They got in a fight, and nobody said anything. They were like, that's just two grown men getting over it over a woman. That's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do. But it's like, white people always seem to want to take the moral high ground. Like, they have never seen this happen before when it's between black people. And that's not the case. Then black people want to take the stance on, it's another reason they treat us wrong. And that idea is the same as saying that woman got raped because of the skirt she wore. That's not true. Because when black men, people tell that to me, I said, how do you explain Ajanu, who was 4 years old in her crib when they shot her in the face in Michigan? How do you explain Breonna Taylor? How do you explain Trayvon Martin? It wasn't even so these are unarmed people that just got killed. So don't say because this incident is going to cause them to treat us any differently, because they can't really treat us any worse. You know, there's a monument in the middle of Alabama with 2,700 names on it of people they have lynched over the last 400 years. You know, that means that's 500 people a year. They're just going around just lynching that we know of. And I tell them again, it's like every 30 seconds in the United States of America, a black girl or woman disappears. Every 30 seconds with no traces to find them. And nobody looking for them. So don't tell me that a black man smacking another black man for disrespecting his wife is going to make them treat us any worse. So that's not a real thing.
Well,
and if it does, that's just part of racism. And when they say, we're going to treat you worse, I say, oh, because you're racist? Because that's the reason why you're going to treat 40 million black people worse for what 2 men did. And that's just that's the hardcore fact about it. It's 40 million of us. You're gonna blame us all for what 2 men did on a stage at a show where one was ashamed and angry by another one making a joke, and it's been long-standing bad blood between them. Okay, I'll eat that. I eat that every time.
Yep. Well, we can always trust Chuck to take it to another level in these conversations. But I will say that was the realest fucking response that I've gotten on this subject all week since it happened. So thank you for that. That was, I agree. You're right. It's another leverage point that they will use.
Yeah.
Saying that they look bad. Black people look bad, but it doesn't really have to do with Will Smith and Chris Rock at that point. It's a little bit beyond that. So
yep. And when they say, all y'all look bad for what these 2 men did, I'm like, oh, so you're just a racist. You're just admitting that you're racist. Because I've never seen bad things that white men have done to black people and said, all y'all going to do that to me. Because if that was the case, I would never leave my place. I would never leave my place. I never looked at those 3 white men that killed Ahmaud Arbery while he was jogging and said, every white man is going to do that to me. I've never thought that, never said that.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to some other news in the last few minutes that we have here. Just
I'm sorry.
Let that simmer with our audience. You think on that, all right? All right. So Eddie Murphy is to play the godfather of funk, George Clinton, in a new biopic. So Eddie Murphy in his early talks to play Parliament Funkadelic leader George Clinton in an upcoming biopic. He's also going to serve as a producer with John Davis and Catherine Davis through their Davis Entertainment banner. They're tying down the rights with Rock and Roll Hall of Famers and Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award winner, and then they will set the writers to shop the project. So the film will tell the story of an iconic musician's humble beginnings in North Carolina in the 1940s, of the formation of his groundbreaking bands, Parliament and the Funkadelic, and ultimately become a major influence on artists of the hip hop generation, including Tupac Shakur, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Outkast, Wu-Tang Clan, and many, many others. R&B, what do you guys think about this upcoming project?
R&B as well. I mean, he's the godfather of funk.
Rock.
I mean, the father of funk. Yeah, rock, everything. Rock. Yeah, I mean, it helped. It's helped what ushered in the transition from disco to R&B. It was the handhold into that transition as well. Here's the thing I find fascinating in this, and that is people sleep on Eddie Murphy's chops as an actor. Like he's funny. He is funny. He's one of the godfathers of Mount Rushmore of black comedy. He's on that face, but he got some depth, man. Like, and he proved it to us over the pandemic with his rendition of Rudy Ray Moore. I forgot the name of it. And it was really well done. Really well done for a staple of black culture, Rudy Ray Moore. And was brought to the mainstream where most people didn't know who he was. And it took somebody like Eddie Murphy to kind of bring him to the forefront and bring it and have it done. Yeah, Dolomite is my name. That's what it was. And it took Eddie Murphy to kind of like bring that story to the limelight. And then for even us that had it in our culture, we didn't even know the depths as to how far and how the real person who Rudy Ray Moore is, because we just knew about the rhymes. Anyways, I'm just happy that he is going to be heading this project because I think it's going to be in good hands. Now, as far as the acting is concerned, now writing is everything, so we'll see how the writing turns out. But Parliament, I think he's going to shine some light on maybe an artist whose light may not be as shining as brightly as it was, 10, 15 years ago. So let's put the spotlight on that again a little bit more.
I like that. So do you feel like he was a good choice for this role?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think he's capable. Yeah, he's capable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the brother's talented, man. Like he got nominated for an Oscar for Dreamgirls, didn't he? I know he didn't win.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, I'm almost certain that he's been nominated at least once. Yeah, he may have been nominated even twice.
My only problem with him is that hopefully they'll have a young person playing George Clinton through the 60s and 70s when he created Parliament in the 60s. Then transformed to Funkadelic, and what people don't know, Funkadelic is probably the greatest rock band of all time. What they did to psychedelic rock and progressive rock is unheard of. Maggot Brain is like one of the greatest albums of all time. One Nation Under the Groove is one of the greatest albums of all time. He had a funk group called Parliament, then turned it into a rock group called Funkadelic. And at the time, they called it Parliament Funkadelic because he had both groups going with over like 40, 50 musicians in both groups. It's amazing. He did something that Prince dreamed of doing. He was the prototype for Prince to create the bands the way he created the bands. So this is gonna be an interesting. George Clinton had his crack cocaine and his cocaine spills from time to time. He made great albums with Shaka Khan. I'm really interested in this story. I'm really, really interested.
Yeah. Because there's no way you can make that type of music and not have some dope history.
Oh man,
right? There's no way
you
can make that kind of music and not have some crazy history behind it. Yeah,
he used to come out on the stage in a diaper as like a 60-year-old man.
I mean, he's influenced like he influenced an entire genre of hip hop, West Coast music in general. Like a big large part of it was influenced by him and even indirectly influenced because he influenced like bands like the Gap Band and other artists have taken from that, which was influenced by his work. So it's a domino effect. Like they call him like he's the Godfather for real.
Yeah, people
understand. Earth, Wind, and Fire. I know. I know.
So cool.
I'm sorry. Earth, Wind, and Fire.
So good.
People have to understand he had like musicians like Ray Davis, Bootsy Collins, Cordell Boogie Moson. Yes. Sweet Pea came up under him. There's a lot of like legendary musicians. He is on the same level as Miles Davis's music construction and on the same artistry as James Brown with music, probably more so.
So why do you think he's not as well known? I feel like those are generally bigger names in the mainstream.
Because they had bigger pop hits than him. He had
a very niche group at the time.
Yeah, these were guys that were making like blowout music, and you have to understand too, they made a lot of pro-black music too as well.
Yes,
a lot of their music was
some of the blackest, dopest album covers you'll ever see.
Yeah, when they do One Nation Under a Groove, you'll be like,
scare the hell out of white folk.
Yeah, that'll keep you out of the mainstream, at least back in the day.
Yeah. like they had segments.
All right, listeners, well,
Whitey does this, Whitey does that. That doesn't usually do well overall. That usually doesn't do well overall.
It's hard to be a top 10 record.
We have interludes talking about Whitey.
All right, well, your listeners out there, your homework for tonight or over the next week, I guess, is to listen up on some Parliament and Funkadelic. I know I'm going to do that tonight. All right, guys. Well, that concludes the news segment of our show for today. Thank you guys all for tuning in. GeekBeast, by the way, is now in podcast form. I listened to it the other day. It's fucking good. We come through well on podcasts. I'm just saying. Yeah. I'm not even trying to be humble about it. We sound pretty fucking good. This translates well to podcast form. Anyways, go check it out. You can get it on Apple Podcasts and subscribe there, in addition to here on our YouTube channel. And you know what? I guess what else do I have to say? I don't have anything else to say. Subscribe. Do what I tell you to. It's nice being back, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.